It's 1961, a quiet test track in Michigan. Early morning air, cold enough to sting your lungs. A stripped-down, full-size Pontiac rolls to the line. No fancy paint, no chrome, just steel, rubber, and something dangerous hiding under the hood. The driver brings the revs up. The engine screams past 5,000 RPM, high for its time, higher than most V8s dared to go. Then he drops the clutch. The car launches like it's been hit from behind, tires fighting for grip. The nose lifts. The sound is raw, violent, unfiltered, and in that moment, something changes. Because what almost nobody knows is that this engine, the Pontiac 421, didn't just win races. It started a war that would drag in Ford, Chrysler, Chevrolet, and ignite what we now call the muscle car era. But here's the twist. Pontiac didn't mean for it to happen. And the story behind it? It's way more brutal than you think. Back in the late 1950s, American car companies were obsessed with size. Bigger cars, softer suspensions, smooth, quiet rides. Power mattered, but mostly for comfort, not speed. Chrome was king, fins were fashionable, and performance? That was something you whispered about in back rooms, not something you advertised in showrooms. Pontiac at the time was stuck in the middle. Not as flashy as Chevrolet, not as luxurious as Cadillac. Sales were fine, nothing more. They were building cars your uncle drove, your neighbor's mom, solid, dependable, forgettable. But inside Pontiac, there was a problem. A man named John DeLorean, yes, that John DeLorean, was getting impatient. He believed Pontiac could be something else entirely. Faster, louder, more aggressive. Young buyers didn't want their father's car. They wanted excitement. They wanted to feel something when they turned the key, but corporate rules at General Motors were strict. Officially, GM had banned factory racing. No performance image, no street racers, no headlines about speed. The Automobile Manufacturers Association had agreed to stop promoting racing and performance. It was supposed to be about safety, responsibility, corporate image. So what do you do when your company tells you to stay quiet, but you want to build something that screams? You go underground. And that's exactly what Pontiac did. They started with their existing V8 architecture, a cast iron block with a 4.0625-inch bore spacing. Pretty standard for the time. But they pushed it further. First came the 389 cubic inch engine, with a 4.06-inch bore and a 3.75-inch stroke. It made around 325 horsepower in standard form. Respectable. People liked it. Performance enthusiasts noticed it. But not enough. So Pontiac engineers began experimenting, quietly, aggressively. Late nights in the engineering building. Unofficial tests at proving grounds. Parts ordered without paperwork trails. They increased the stroke to 4.0 inches. Kept the bore at roughly 4.09 inches. That brought displacement to 421 cubic inches. And now things got serious. Compression ratios climbed to 10.75.1, even 11.1 in some race setups. High for pump gas at the time, risky, explosive. The engineers knew they were playing with fire, literally. Higher compression meant more heat, more stress, more chance of catastrophic detonation. Horsepower jumped to 370, then 405, and in full Super Duty race trim, over 420 horsepower. Torque? A brutal 460 pound-feet. Delivered low, hard, and instantly. This wasn't just power, it was violence in mechanical form, but there was a problem. Actually, several problems. At high RPM, things started breaking. The crankshaft was under enormous stress. Oiling became inconsistent. Bearings overheated. Some engines came back from testing with metal shavings sitting in the oil pan like glitter. One mechanic reportedly said, "The bearings looked like they'd been through a war." Because they had. The valve train was another nightmare. Push rods flexed under load. Valve springs couldn't handle sustained high RPM. Lifters pumped up and collapsed. At 6,000 RPM, the oil system simply couldn't keep up. It fed the top end first, the valve train, while the crankshaft, the most stressed part, starved for oil. And when the crank starved, it died. Fast. Connecting rod bearings went first. Then main bearings. Then the whole bottom end would seize, rods punching through the block like artillery shells. Engineers pulled apart failed engines in hushed rooms, studying, measuring, learning. What they found wasn't pretty. Oil pressure would drop catastrophically above 5,500 RPM. The pump couldn't move enough volume. The passages were too small. The priority routing was backwards. So Pontiac engineers made a decision that changed everything. They redesigned the oiling priorities. Not a full side oiler like Ford would later build, but a smarter, more direct feed to the mains. Oil was rerouted to reach the crankshaft faster. Stronger bearings were used. Clearances were tightened. They upgraded to a higher volume oil pump. Larger oil passages were drilled through the block. Priority valving was added to ensure the crank got fed first. It wasn't elegant, but it worked. And once it worked, they unleashed it. By 1962, Pontiac introduced the 421 Super Duty. This wasn't just an engine, it was a weapon. Aluminum front ends, reduced weight. Dual 4-barrel carburetors sat on top like twin cannons. Solid lifters allowed higher RPM stability. Forged pistons replaced cast. Forged rods replaced stamped. The crankshaft was cross-drilled and balanced to aircraft tolerances. McKellar No. 1 camshafts with aggressive lift and duration. Deep groove main bearings, screw-in rocker studs. Every detail mattered. In race trim, these engines pushed beyond 6,200 RPM, territory most American V8s feared. And then they took it to the track. At the 1962 NHRA Winter Nationals, Pontiac showed up with full-size Catalinas packing 421 Super Duty engines, big cars, over 4,000 pounds. They shouldn't have been fast. Most people laughed when they saw them roll in. Full-size sedans competing against lighter, purpose-built drag cars. But they were. Drivers launched hard. The big Pontiacs hooked up and charged down the strip like freight trains with afterburners. Quarter-mile times dropped into the low 12-second range. Some even touched high 11s at over 115 mph. That wasn't just competitive. It was dominant. Spectators couldn't believe what they were seeing. Full-size family cars running times that dedicated race machines struggled to achieve. And the competition noticed, especially one company, Ford. Because Pontiac wasn't just winning, they were embarrassing everyone else. Ford had prided itself on performance. They'd been building flatheads, FE big blocks. They thought they owned the performance market. And now, this upstart Pontiac division, the boring middle child of GM, was making them look slow. And Ford executives hated losing. Henry Ford II didn't take kindly to being beaten, especially not by Pontiac, especially not in public. So they responded the only way they knew how. They built something bigger, stronger, more aggressive, the 427 FE. With a 4.23-inch bore and a 3.78-inch stroke, it pushed 425 horsepower in street form and well over 500 in race trim. And unlike Pontiac's early struggles, Ford engineered a true solution to the oiling problem. A side oiler system, feeding oil directly to the crankshaft first. It was brutal, efficient, nearly indestructible. The legendary side oiler that would power Cobras, GT40s, and countless drag cars for decades to come. And just like that, the war escalated. Chrysler joined in next. They'd been watching from the sidelines, taking notes, getting angrier. They introduced the 426 Max Wedge, then the legendary 426 HEMI. Massive ports, hemispherical combustion chambers, compression ratios pushing 12.5.1. Engineers at Chrysler went absolutely insane with development. No expense spared, no idea too radical. In race trim, these engines made over 500 horsepower naturally aspirated, numbers that seemed impossible, numbers that made people question if they were legal. Now the stakes were insane. quarter-mile times dropped into the 10-second range. Speeds climbed past 130 mph. Engines were no longer just engines. They were statements. They were bragging rights. They were corporate pride wrapped in cast iron and gasoline. And Pontiac? They were right in the middle of it. They kept pushing, kept developing, kept winning races when they could. But here's where things took a turn, because while Pontiac had started this war, they weren't prepared to finish it. By 1963, GM's corporate leadership stepped in harder than ever. No racing, no exceptions. The bean counters had noticed. The lawyers had gotten nervous. The executives wanted control back. The Super Duty program was shut down. Officially, Pontiac was out, just like that. No more factory-backed race engines. No more development. No more 421 dominance. Parts suppliers were told to stop production. Engineers were reassigned. The underground network was dismantled. And the timing couldn't have been worse, because Ford and Chrysler were just getting started. They had budgets. They had momentum. They had corporate backing that Pontiac had just lost. Pontiac tried to pivot. They adapted the 421 for street use. Detuned versions made around 338 to 370 horsepower. Still strong, still fast. You could still order a 421 in a Catalina, a Grand Prix, a Bonneville. It was a fantastic street engine, reliable, powerful, torquey. But without factory racing support, the edge was gone. The mystique faded. The wins stopped coming. The headlines moved on. And then something unexpected happened. A new kind of car emerged, smaller, lighter, more aggressive, more accessible. In 1964, Pontiac introduced the GTO, a mid-size car with a big V8. At first, it used the 389 engine, not the 421. Why? Because the 421 was expensive, heavy, and increasingly restricted by GM policies. Corporate had made it clear, no engines over 400 cubic inches in mid-size cars, period. But make no mistake, the GTO wouldn't exist without the 421, because it was the 421 that proved something critical. That raw power mattered, that people wanted speed, that a big engine in a regular car could change everything. The 421 had shown that performance sold, that young buyers would line up, that the rulebook could be rewritten, and once that idea took hold, there was no stopping it. Ford responded with the Fairlane Thunderbolt. Chrysler pushed harder with the HEMI. Chevrolet unleashed the 396 and later the 427 big blocks. The muscle car war was in full swing. Dodge brought out the Charger. Plymouth had the Roadrunner. Mercury built the Cyclone. AMC jumped in with the AMX. Every manufacturer had to have an answer, had to have horsepower, had to have something to bring young buyers into showrooms. And Pontiac, the company that lit the fuse, was slowly fading from the front lines. They had great cars. The GTO became legendary, the Firebird, the Trans Am. But the 421? It became a footnote, a piece of history that fewer and fewer people remembered. Production numbers tell the story. Only a few thousand 421 Super Duty engines were ever built. Many were race only. Many didn't survive. They were pushed too hard, run too hot, blown apart in the pursuit of speed. Engines that made it to the street often lived hard lives, drag strips, street races, brutal dyno pulls. Today, surviving examples are rare. Collectors chase them, restore them, protect them. Original Super Duty cars command six-figure prices, sometimes seven, because they represent something raw, something real. A moment in time when engineers broke the rules and changed the world. But maybe the craziest part of this story is this. The 421 didn't win the war. It didn't dominate for decades. It didn't become the most famous engine. The 427 Ford got more glory. The HEMI got more fame. The big block Chevys sold more units. But it didn't need to, because it did something far more important. It forced everyone else to step up. It triggered an arms race that gave us the greatest era of American performance cars ever built. Without the 421, there's no 427 side oiler legend, no 426 HEMI dominance, No true muscle car explosion. It all traces back to that quiet morning, that test run, that violent launch off the line. The moment Pontiac decided to stop playing safe and start building something dangerous. In the end, the Pontiac 421 was more than just an engine. It was a spark. 421 cubic inches, a 4.09-inch bore, a 4.0-inch stroke, over 400 horsepower in race trim, and torque that could twist steel. It exposed weaknesses, it forced innovation, and it dragged the entire industry into a horsepower war no one could control. That's why people still talk about it today. Not because it lasted the longest, but because it changed everything. And somewhere, on a forgotten piece of test track in Michigan, you can still feel it. That moment when everything shifted, when the quiet ended, and the war began.